time for a drum roll. Because in this box, I have got, there goes my phone. But in this box, I have got the new Invicta Pro Diver. I better get my phone. So let's get this package unwrapped. And here it is then, out of the box, the new Invicta Pro Diver. And I do have to say that iridescent blue dial is looking really fine. Just going to take off the little plastic cover here now. And oh yeah, now that looks good, I think. So I'm going to get on to the look of this watch a little bit later, but first, it's a dive watch, so I am going to put it straight in the pressure testing tank. So as you can see here, I have pumped up the pressure to the equivalent of 60 meters worth of water pressure. So the pressure, the air pressure inside the air pocket that you can see here, where the watch is ticking away, that is the equivalent of 60 meters worth of water pressure. Now, when we push the watch down inside the water and release the air from that air pocket, if the watch has been compromised, we will see a huge amount of bubbles come out of it because the difference in the air pressure will be so great. So let us get on with it. Let's get this watch down in the water now. So this is the moment of truth. What we're going to do now is drop the watch down into the water. It's actually quite hard to push down because of the pressure, and there it is down in the water. Just got to lock that off now. Okay, so with a siren there in the background, probably quite appropriately because we might have an emergency here in a minute. In fact, when I've done this test, so long as it's successful that is, I am going to show you what it looks like when it doesn't really go very well at all. And the thing fails. But this is the moment of truth now. I am going to let out the air in the air pocket. If this watch is compromised, you will see a whole host of bubbles start rushing out somewhere from the watch, and in which case we'll start then to lift it out of the water pretty quickly. But let's hope that it's as good as the specification says. And the light is changing on me here now, so I'm just going to have to, we've got a lot of sunlight coming out, so just going to have to change the aperture there a little bit so that we can deal with that, even maybe a little bit more there. Okay, so what we're looking for now is bubbles. Just see, maybe if I change the aperture there and the shutter speed a little bit, we are good. So we are ready now. We've dealt with the light. Let's get on with it. I am going to push the button. You're going to hear the air rush out. You may see a few bubbles, but that is not the end of the world. If we get a massive rush of bubbles, we are in big trouble. Let's do it now. As gently as I may. You're going to hear the air come out about now. Okay. And we definitely saw a few bubbles come out there, but nothing like we would have seen if this case was compromised. Also, you can see that the watch is still running there nicely. So, well done, Invicta. This watch is good down to 60 meters. So just a quick word on the movement inside this watch. And you can see the reference for the watch there is the 392, 30092. And on the website for Invicta, they specify for this watch that it has the Seiko NH35A. But guys, I can assure you that the movement that you're looking at now is not a Seiko NH35A. Having opened up this watch, the movement inside it that I have received is the Miyota movement, a Miyota movement, and I think it's the 8215, which beats at 21,600 beats per hour and has 21 joules, and it's actually a nice little movement. Anyway, because of the discrepancy here, to a certain extent I'm going to cover both movements in this video. Now this is really interesting because I literally just picked up the watch and plonked it onto the Timegrapher here, really just to do a sort of sound check and a I sound like I'm Bon Jovi. Just to do a check really of the light and everything. And do you know, the watch has not been wound in like over a day, and just plonked it on the Timegrapher here. But if you look at the trace, it's not at all shabby. Okay, I think when we give the watch some power, we are going to get a whole lot better than that. But as you can see, it is, you know, it's only losing 3 seconds a day there. The beat error is pretty good, and the amplitude's a little bit low. It's quite low, but nevertheless, this is holding up regardless of the amount of neglect that I have given it. So let's give it a proper wind now and do this properly in all of the positions. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so firstly then dial up, and as you can see now we've given the watch a bit of power. The amplitude is way back up where it should be. That's a nice high amplitude, 304. We're plus 16 seconds a day, which is well within specification, and the beat error is down to 0.2 of a millisecond, so dial up is good. Let's have a look at dial down. So I'm actually doing pendant down or crown down now, which of course is a really important position because it's the way the watch hangs when you've just got your arm down by your side. And if we look at the trace for that, you know, this is good. This is amplitude is where it should be, 274. There is a 0 beat error, and we're plus 14 seconds, which is, you know, very similar to the other position. Okay, so we're not quite sure whether or not when you get this watch, if you decide to get one, that it's going to come with a Seiko NH35 or with this movement, which is a Miyota movement. Pretty sure it is the 8215, but if I've got that wrong, then guys, please correct me in the comments. It's a nice little movement, this. The rotor arm has got a really nice action on it, actually. Yeah, look at that. That is cool. And, you know, they make a whole host of these movements. They're very, very popular. Okay, it's got this sort of nasty plastic movement holder, but in a watch at this price point, that's pretty much what you would expect. And, you know, they do, you know, look great, but you don't see them anyway. And they do, you know, they do perform the function reasonably well. You know, everything about this movement is just business-like, utilitarian, and pared down. It really does what it says on the tin. It is reasonably accurate and pretty reliable. So, and as you've seen, we've got some, you know, good performance figures from this particular movement, with no particular regulation from myself. So yeah, this is a good movement, as is the NH35A. So really, regardless of which one you get, which is why Invicta have chosen these two movements, I guess, for this watch, you're getting a good movement for the money. Now I've got a partially disassembled NH35A here because I just want to focus in on a couple of components which, you know, I don't really like very much, and let's just show you which ones those are now. And voila, let's focus in on these two little components now. So coming in really close now, and as you can see, we've got these two little components, and they are both made out of plastic. And I do not like to see plastic components in a watch movement, particularly it's quite nasty plastic as well. It's quite sort of cheap plastic. Not that I'm a massive expert in plastic, but you know, I just don't think these are designed to last. And if you look at some of my videos where I am doing for full service on the King Seiko, you know, Seiko movement's got plastic parts in it, and after a certain number of years the plastic hardens, it splits, and the date stops changing. So, you know, maybe the writing is on the wall with these components here. I just wanted to highlight it because, you know, the NH35A is a good movement, but it is not a high quality movement. But we're only paying 60 or 70 pound for the watch, so you know, that's kind of where we are with it, I guess. So let's now have a look at the outside of this watch. Okay, we've seen that the watch keeps out the water, which after all for a dive watch is, I guess, pretty important. Now I'm going to go on to look now at the kind of easier stuff, the way in which the watch looks. Now, of course, it is a Rolex Submariner Homage, and in that, it kind of looks great because that is a great look, undeniably. We've got the Jubilee bracelet. I'm going to look at it in detail now because there is one thing that I have a reservation about that I think Invicta have actually got wrong on this, and I was really surprised when I first saw it. So I'm going to go through that now and just point out that one thing which really a little bit disappointed about. And here it is then, the Invicta Pro Diver, and the reference for this you can just see coming up at the top left of the screen now. And I think you'll agree that, well, I don't know whether you agree at all, but I think they've actually made a pretty good job of the dial here. It is a Rolex Submariner Homage, and there are a few subtle differences, but it retains the Rolex Submariner look. In fact, I've got a couple of real ones here that have come in for a service. So this is the watch which it pays homage to, and this is the Rolex reference 16610, made in about 1997, and you can see that there is a great similarity, but you're probably also noticing the thing that I think Invicta have not got right here, and if you've not spotted that, I'll point it out in a moment. Also, you can check out the size of the watch. The Invicta is bigger than the Rolex, as you can see, slightly more in your face for want of a better expression. So that's the Rolex 16610. Also got a slightly earlier one, slightly more vintage. See if we can get that in focus there. And this is another Submariner. This is a Rolex 16800, which is also in for some work. And again, you know, huge similarities. The differences are subtle, but again, there is one thing, and I expect you're noticing it now, having seen both of them, which is definitely not so good in my view. And I will, in case you've not got it, I'll mention that in a moment. But just looking then, focusing back in on the Invicta, because it is an Invicta video, not a Rolex video. you know, the watch looks, as you have seen, like a Rolex Submariner. It is a great looking watch. This one does actually have the Jubilee bracelet. Jubilee bracelets tend to suffer from this rainbow kind of effect here. If you're lucky enough to have a solid yellow gold Rolex President with one of these, you're probably very familiar with this phenomena. It's because the links are very narrow, so you've got a lot of fresh air. The ratio of fresh air to metal on the links there, or on the bracelet rather, is quite high. The one thing that they have got right, I think, with this particular model is the larger white indices. I think they're an improvement. In a minute we'll turn off the light and look at the lume, see how they act. The other thing that they've got right is the display back here, and they've taken off that horrible, well, I thought it was horrible, yellow rotor, just replaced it with a very, less is more, a very simple rotor arm that you can see rocking around there. And just in case you don't know what the rotor arm is, it is the device that powers the mainspring. So as you wear the watch, it revolves, turns around, that puts kinetic energy into the mainspring via the automatic works, where the mainspring holds it as potential energy and then releases it under regulation through the escapement, so that your watch will work. So all the time you are wearing this watch, it is winding itself up, which is really, really green. So all in all, I think it's a great looking watch with a very functional but not high-end movement. Really nice movement, but nothing like the Rolex 3135, which is inside this watch here. And if you want to see what that movement is like, then just go and look at my video on that. And actually I'll pop up a card right now that'll take you to a service of that movement, which is the Rolex 3135, which is one of my most favorite automatic watch movements. So now let's just then turn to the thing that we don't really like before actually I sum up on this watch and show you a pressure test of an Invicta when it doesn't go well, because that's amusing. It's quite funny to see that. So now the thing that they got wrong is this. Now let me see if I can just focus in on this. This, guys, is the Invicta Cyclops. Now if you're going to put a Cyclops on a watch, you really ought to make sure that it magnifies properly. Now this does half the job. You can see that the date window is still pretty small. I mean, it's not as small as it actually is, but the magnification is not, just really isn't that great. Whereas if you look at the two Rolexes, I just swapped them out now, and the difference is absolutely massive, right? Now this is a 7,500. So just picking up my thread, because I actually ran out of tape, for want of a better expression there, so the camera came to a crunching halt. So just picking up that, we were looking at the date window, and this is the date window of the Invicta, and this is the date window of the Rolex, the more modern Rolex. And if that will focus for me, that is the 16610, and this is the Rolex 16800. And in both cases you can just see how big and bold and what a good job Rolex has made. But what I was saying was that this watch here is about £7,800 worth. This watch here is a similar price, and I got to check on the the cost of this Invicta, because I can't remember, I think it's either 70 or 120 pounds. I know that's a massive difference. Anyway, in the comments I will make sure that I have exactly the right, in fact I'll have a link to where you can buy it and check out the latest price. So if you want to check that out, and the price of this watch. So, you know, the date, window and the Cyclops working together are not as good as the Rolex, but you can buy 100 plus of these watches for one of the Rolex. Guys, that is the detailed look at the outside of this watch. I am just going to do a little summary now and then show you how not to do it. Well, no, that's not true. And then show you how spectacularly an Invicta with a little crack in the back of its exhibition case back, how spectacular that is when you put it in the pressure tester, and just how dramatic the fail is. So hang on for the summary, hang on for that. And oh, by the way, yeah, if you like these videos, then please guys subscribe, because you know this is my day job. This is what I do, and I try and find the time to make the odd video because I think you guys find it interesting. But if you could subscribe, if you could subscribe, that would be really, really helpful. Anyway, let's get on with the summary. So with the watch ticking away on the bench there, what do we think of this new Invicta Pro Diver, the reference 30092? And the first thing that I have to say, I do have to declare an interest really, because, you know, I'm a fan of this model of Invicta. And by that I mean the Pro Diver. And within the Pro Diver range there are many, many watches, but the ones that I'm really talking about are these that are the Rolex Submariner Homage. And, you know, as I said throughout this video, I think the watch looks great. There's only one thing about this watch that I don't really like, and that's the Cyclops window. And I'm really foxed to understand why Invicta did that, because on the previous version it was way better. But let's have a look at that watch throughout now. The case is good. The movement is a good functional movement, not a high quality movement. There are plastic parts in there, but it is a good movement. That is a real workhorse. It's the Seiko NH35A. It keeps the water out. We tested it down to 60 meters. Okay, I don't actually have the kit to test it all the way down to 200 meters, but let's face it, unless you are a sort of full-time serious diver, in which case you won't be wearing this watch, then you are unlikely to go down to 60 meters unless you're in big trouble. So guys, very quick summary. The watch looks great. It's functional. It's got one small niggle that I don't like, which is the Cyclops. The Jubilee bracelet is nice. It's a nice touch. So my summary on this watch is, for the money, this is a really, really good watch by Invicta. I particularly like the one with the blue dial here with the white indices. It's kind of the Invicta Smurf, really, if you're a Rolex Smurf fan. And the difference in price between those two watches is absolutely massive. So if you want to check out the price, look at the link that's in the comments. And guys, as I said a moment ago, please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to leave you now with a shot of doing a pressure test with an Invicta like this, which has actually got a crack in the exhibition case at the back. And you'll see that when you do that, it all goes pear-shaped very rapidly. Anyway, this is Richard Perra from Pembroke Dock in Southwest Wales in the United Kingdom, wishing you guys good night and God bless. Okay, that's the watch down in the water then. As we repeat it, we will see. Down in the water then. Shit. Glue the back